This is the Tri Swim Coach podcast, where the most difficult leg of the triathlon becomes your friend, leaving your struggles and your competition behind you. TrySwimCoach.com, helping you to laugh at the water.
Welcome back to the Tri Swim Coach podcast. This is Kevin, and this is episode number 102. And I have Chris Haig on the other line. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Kevin.
How's it going out there in the desert this summer?
It's hot, but as they say, it's a dry heat. So just more excuses to get into the water. Swimming when when it's winter outside and you're anywhere but the Southwest, and it's 10 degrees below, you really have no motivation to get into the water. But in the summer in the Southwest, when it's like 100, 110, when you first wake up, like getting in the pool, it's a breath of fresh air. Like you want to get into the pool. So that's been helpful. That first dive in where you really don't want to do it gets a lot easier when it's hot outside.
Yeah, I think if I were in that area, I would just spend most of my time in the water and probably shrivel up or something. Yeah, that's a good place though. I get tired of Southern California in the summer. It gets so crowded, and it's like all the Arizona people, most of the Arizona people come out to San Diego and LA and spend time on the beach, and so it makes the traffic just horrible.
Well, worse than it already is.
Worse than it is. Yeah, San Diego's not too bad from September to May, but then as soon as like June rolls around, it suddenly turns into like the most crowded place in the world. Yeah, so anyone that's listening, don't move to San Diego. It's a horrible place. Like, don't even think about it. Just stay where you are.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been in Europe for the last 7 weeks, and I just got back, so I'm a little bit jet lagged today, and so my brain is like moving a little bit slow. So if there's long awkward pauses on this podcast, and you know why. Yeah, I was just traveling, and I had a meeting out there, and I decided just to make it into a trip to see some places. I went to started in Prague in Eastern Europe, or that's actually Central Europe, and then I went up to Poland, and then I went to Eastern Europe a little bit, saw the Baltics, and then I went to Helsinki, Finland, met some triathletes there that are actually, one of the guys actually is a Tri Swim Coach customer, and randomly. And then I went to Berlin, Germany, and then I went back to California. So it's been a crazy, crazy time. And now I'm kind of catching up on things, and we're finally getting another podcast out, which is great because we've been off for a little bit.
Yeah. How are the pools over there? Do they have are they good pools, or is there a lot of pools?
Yeah, lots of pools. Unfortunately, I didn't even do any swimming the whole time when I was out there. There's a lot of pools everywhere. Seems to have a pretty good situation with pools, especially then in Helsinki. There's tons of them, and then they have, of course, they have the most lakes, I think, of any country or per capita. There's like hundreds of thousands of lakes or something. It's like ridiculous. And so people train in the lakes, and then they're pretty hardcore because it starts getting cold there, I think, at the end of August, and it's like their summer is like 2.5 months or something. Yeah, there's a lot of swimming, a lot of good places. And, I think I'd like to expand a little bit because I realized how many people, like English is so common everywhere I went. So there's no reason why people should not be listening to Tri Swim Coach and following our stuff, right?
Of course.
So anyway, we're back and doing another podcast, and we wanted to talk about there's a lot of common issues that come up with swimming. And so one thing we do, if you sign up for our newsletter, you'll get an email. It's an autoresponder. It's an email that goes out and just kind of welcome to Tri Swim Coach and some tips, and then we ask you to respond and say why you signed up for Tri Swim Coach. What was your interest? So we've been getting a lot of ideas on what people are struggling with because they'll always tell us. And Chris and I both have responded to emails, so we're personally responding to those ones and trying to help people with their issues. But we want to cover some of them on this podcast in case you have some of these issues, because you probably do. We've got 4 of them, and they are definitely of the commonly asked questions. So once we put this podcast out, we never want to hear them again. If you can stop asking us, that would be awesome. No, I'm just kidding. So let's start with the first one, and that is I want to be more efficient.
I love this. Like efficiency is like the big buzzword now, like in the triathlon world in general. You know, I want to become a more efficient runner. I want to become a more efficient fat burner. I want to become a more efficient. We see it a lot in swimming, and it's just one of those terms that people use, and I don't think they really know what it means. So like the way I like to define efficiency is being able to move quickly through the water with the least amount of energy. To do that, Tri-Swim Coach likes to focus on two things. We got body position and then also pull mechanics. Well, let's focus on like the first one, body position. And what that means is you're horizontal in the water. If you've been following the Olympics, you look at the swimmers, they're half in the water and then half out of the water, just like the way the water cuts through their body. They're like perfectly horizontal, maybe like a slight arch in the back, but they don't have sinking legs. You know, their shoulders are right along with like the rest of their body. Their head is in a nice neutral position. They're rotating to the side and either left or right to breathe. They're not, breathing up and throwing off their mechanics. So focusing on body position. And, the corollary, another kind of subset of I want to become more efficient is my leg sink. And we see that a lot. I mean, it's very, very common, especially when you first start swimming. And that's why we, like in our program, that's the first thing we address is sinking legs, because it's getting that body position correct is so critical to the rest of your swimming success. I wrote a blog post on sinking legs a couple weeks ago, and just to summarize that quickly, there are many reasons for sinking legs. The most common ones being, reaching up or looking up to breathe. So, breathing to the front instead of to the side, holding your breath because that air in your lungs will push your lower body down, not having flexible enough ankles. And we address that in our program as well through vertical kicking. Pretty much. And just kind of lack of coordination in the water. I think a lot of people, when they get into this, this buoyant environment, they just kind of let their legs sink because they don't know what to do with them. That all goes under body position, that you want to become more efficient in the water, to reduce your drag, and to be able to propel yourself forward. You need to focus on your body position.
Yeah, the efficiency it's a tough thing, because a lot of people say that I want to be more efficient. How do I get more efficient? And they want the magic pill. They want the thing that's going to make it all change overnight. And swimming, like we've talked about it, but swimming is like golf. There's so many things that go into it, and we try to focus on the most important things. But there's still more than one thing that you have to work on in order to get that efficiency like you want, like you see in I just watched the open water. I mean, it was the highlights because it would take forever, but there was the women's open water Olympics swim, and I mean, they did it. There was a video, it was like 3 minutes long. They did the highlights of it, which was pretty awesome. But that was 10-kilometer open water swim, and so that's a really long swim. But you watch them, and that's where you really can get a lot of tips on. I mean, as opposed to watching Michael Phelps, which, of course, he's the best athlete ever, or, whatever. But he does sprints for the most part. So, and he does butterfly. So you don't want to copy him. But to get back to efficiency, it's a series of different drills that we do. It's a series of different body positions, and they all come together, but it has to be in the right order, and you have to focus on specific things at specific times. So that's where there's no short answer to that question, but the sinking legs does come up over and over and over again. And the thing that's interesting about all these people asking questions and responding to us is that most people seem to think that they're the only ones that have this problem, whatever the problem is. It doesn't matter if it's sinking legs or I can't breathe when I swim or whatever. It seems like people are struggling and they think that everyone else has it figured out. But the reality is most people don't have this figured out. So you're not alone if you have, some of these issues. And if you've mastered even one or two of them, you're probably ahead of most people.
And you mentioned breathing. I think that's another one that goes under wanting to become more efficient, along with sinking legs. And if you focus on body position, you're going to become more relaxed in the water, and because you're more relaxed, you're going to be able to breathe more smoothly. And this leads into, pull mechanics too, is that when you are in the proper body position, when you focus on that high elbow catch and pulling straight back without, crossing over or doing the S curve, focusing on that high elbow catch, pulling straight through, pulling with your lats, pulling with your pecs and your upper back. When you get that, you're going to be propelling yourself forward instead of from side to side or up and down in the water. And that's the second part of efficiency, is moving forward as quickly as possible with as little lateral movement in that.
Right. And number 2 is, I hit a plateau. How do I get over it?
So plateaus, I also wrote a blog post on this a couple weeks ago because of this question. Yeah. And, plateaus is, you're not progressing. You're stuck at 2 minutes per 100, or you're stuck at 2:30, or you're stuck at 1:30 per 100 meters. And the way there's 2 ways to approach this, depending on what plateau you've hit. The first one is you need to address your body position. That's the first thing you want to check. You want to make sure that your body position is correct and your pull mechanics are correct. If either of those are weak, if you still are, your legs are still sinking, if you're still crossing over, if you're still using a straight arm pull, then you need to address those first. And I can guarantee if you take 2 steps back and focus on those basics, you're going to be able to take 4 or 5 steps forward, because once you get those right, you're going to be able to break through that plateau with less energy spent. And then if you look at your body position, your pull mechanics, and they're pretty good, then it's time to address your training. And that most likely you haven't been doing enough intensity. So you've been focusing too much on intensity. So focusing on if you've just been doing long, slow swims, or just been doing drills, then you need to get in there and you need to start doing 100 meter, 200 meter, 500 meter repeats. You need to start cranking up the intensity to break through that plateau, because you've gotten into this lull of just doing long, slow swimming, which, there's some benefit to that, but eventually that won't be enough stress to cause the reaction that you want to get fitter.
Yeah, and people love their LSD, right? I mean,
God, yes.
the long slow swimming, it's still, despite the fact that style of training, or that idea that the swimming for really long periods of time slowly is going to help you get faster, like that has been gone for 20 or 30 years, I think, but people still believe in it, and because it's the path of least resistance, right? You don't have to think too much. You just get in and you're like, okay, I got to do 3,000 yards, so I'm going to do 2,000 of them just straight through, slow, and you don't have to think much. And plus, it's like, some people just don't know. I mean, they're just doing it because that's what they've always known. So that's where you're really going to hit a plateau, and that could be in swimming, and that could be in weight loss. And we're going to talk about, by the way, at the end after we go over these 4 points, we're going to talk about our Fit Triathlete course that's coming up, but we'll get to that in just a bit. But the plateau thing, that comes in all different parts of life, and also it depends on where you are in your triathlon. If you're a beginner, you're just starting out, you want to finish an Olympic distance race, then and you're disappointed in how your swim is not getting any faster, it's probably technique, and it's probably a lot of things we just talked about with being more efficient. But if you've been doing this for a few years and you've done several races, and now you're sitting there and you're doing 130, you're doing 100 repeats at 130, minute 30, and you're like, I just can't get to 125. It's a little different situation. There could be a lot of things. I mean, part of it could be technique, but it could also be strength, and strength training could be a thing that gets you over that hump. And then again, not doing as much of the long, slow stuff, but working in sprints. Working in some hypoxic training, there's a lot of things you can do that mixing it up, and then that also does is it alleviates boredom, because I think there are people that get bored with swimming, which there's no need to get bored, because you can always make it interesting. And in fact, Chris and I are going to be researching and putting to practice this methodology that we heard about that would really cut down your pool time and help you get faster. So we'll talk about that later. And I don't want to talk about what it is yet, because it almost sounds ridiculous. But we're gonna look into it and probably get together in September and hash it out. So
yeah, it's actually picking up a lot of steam, not only in triathlon, but in collegiate and high school swimming.
Yeah,
I know Jim Vance is becoming, who's a huge triathlon coach and triathlon writer, is starting to get into it, and he modifies it slightly. It's different from what they were doing. It's a different type of training where volume is king. It kind of turns it on its head.
Yeah, Jim Vance is great. He was on the podcast a couple 3 years ago maybe. So
Yeah, we need to get him back on.
yeah, that'd be
He'd be
great.
good to have. He's
Yeah,
got a couple good books out too that would be good to discuss with him.
yeah, for sure. But anyway, so number 3 is this one's we always laugh at this one. I have a race this weekend and it's like Tuesday. What can I do what should I do to get faster or change my stroke or
I chuckle at this one because I can definitely relate to it, because I remember when I first started out in triathlon, I would always email my coach like on, the week before saying, what if I did this to my swim? What if I did this to my bike or, this to my run? And she would always email me back saying, Chris, relax, get through this weekend and then start making changes. And that's what I kind of, tell. That's how I answer this question, is that focus on this weekend. You're not going to be able to change and become a better swimmer overnight. You're not going to be able to drop from even if you focus on your form and efficiency and watch a couple of YouTube videos and, go through the drills and hop in the water every single day between now and your race, you're not going to make that much of a change. Making change in the pool doesn't happen over the night. It takes lots of practice and lots of pool sessions, a lot of time in the water just to get that muscle memory. So my first piece of recommendation is, focus on this weekend. Keep on doing what you're doing. Keep on focusing on the plan, especially if you're doing like an Ironman or a half Ironman in your next race. You have to rely on the training, and you have to have confidence in the training that you've done, and just rely on that and know that, you put in the mileage, you put in the time, get through the race as best you can, let the other racers go out forward and then do your own thing in the swim. And then afterwards, if that's, your last race of the year, then step back and start focusing on what can I change. And so that's the first thing I tell swimmers who email me, asking for suggestions and asking for help.
Yeah, that's good. And we said, the week of course, there's nothing you can do. You pretty much just have to go with what you've got and relax and don't put any pressure on yourself. It's just a practice session when you race, because you have some work to do on your stroke. But I think the other question that comes out of this, the same thing, is how long before my race can I make changes? Like, what's the shortest amount of time? And I say it's about a month. Like, if you're within a month, if you're probably less than 3 weeks, probably not a good idea to make any major changes. But anything a month or more, you can definitely make some changes and focus on the important stuff. But ideally, you want to start this stuff early.
Yeah, those are some of my favorite emails. I'm aiming to do an Ironman in 2018. Like, that is fantastic. You're starting out on the right foot. You're not building bad habits. You came to the right place. You're building from this. You've got this goal and you know exactly what it is and what you want to do, and you're taking baby steps to get there. Those are my favorite emails.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got this race in 2018 or 2019, or I'm thinking about doing Ironman later on down the road.
Yeah,
that's smart thinking right there.
Exactly. And okay, so the last one, number 4, is, so we get this one all the time. It's amazing how many people send this to us, and that is the message of, I'm such a slow swimmer and I don't know what to do.
And I'm a math teacher. I'm a middle school math teacher. That's my day job, and I see the exact same thing in the classroom. I see kids come to me and say, I'm just not good at math. Yeah. And what they're telling me there is, I'm throwing up my hands. There's nothing I can do to make me a better math student. And it's the same thing in the water. There's nothing I can do. I'm just a slow swimmer. I'm a runner. I'm a cyclist, but I'm not a swimmer. I'm a slow swimmer. And that type of closed mindset is very detrimental, not only to your ability to swim, but also your motivation. Because in the middle of winter, if you think you're a slow swimmer and that alarm goes off, you're just going to hit the snooze button and roll over, because you're not going to want to change because you don't think you can. So my answer to that is, you got to change your mindset. You got to think to yourself, I may not be as fast as where I want to be, but I got to accept myself where I am right now. And I can, with progress and keep on the program and keep on following the plan, I can become a better swimmer. When I think the majority of people who start swimming later on in life come to swimming with this mindset. But you can become a fantastic swimmer with time and practice.
Yeah, totally. I mean, look, Chris, you're a good example of that. I mean, not that I don't know what your mindset was before, but you did not come from a swimming background, and you've been able to develop a pretty awesome stroke at this point.
Yeah, I've gone from I remember, I think it was in 2011, my race pace was 140 for 100 yards. That was like my race pace. And, with progression and over the past 5 years and just practice and, continually honing my swim form and getting into the pool week after week, it's gone from, 140 per 100 yards down to about 122 per 100 meters.
Yeah.
So you will, like, the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And it's the same thing for swimming. You just got to go with that mindset that you will make progress if you keep on focusing on the basics.
Yeah, and it's that growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And there's a book it's an amazing book. It's one of my favorite books I've read in a while. I think I read it earlier this year, but it's just called Mindset. Carol Dweck is the author.
Yep.
Yeah, it goes through examples of all different parts of life, but one of them is they do use a lot of sports examples. But I highly recommend that book because, and I think that applies to our audience specifically because of those emails that we're getting. Because people they get the mindset of I'm a slow swimmer. Your brain actually does what you are thinking about. So if you just are saying you keep saying, oh, I'm slow, then that's what you're gonna get, and it's gonna be harder to make progress. So you will kind of get stuck in that slow area. And that's another one where a lot of people that email us, they really think that they're the only ones. Like, I'm the slow. Like, how many times have you seen that email? I'm the slowest swimmer. I'm the slowest. I am dead last. And it's like, you're almost like, with just the odds, you're probably not the slowest. There's probably people that are slower. But most people have that as their mentality, and it's really important to get over this. In fact, this should be number one, actually, the mindset. Because if you get stuck in this, if you have the mindset of I'm this way and I'll never be another way, then you won't. It doesn't matter how much you practice, because you're still gonna kind of revert back to that original place that you were at the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. And that applies, as you said, to all areas of life. Whether we're talking sports and swimming, or whether it's math in the classroom, or a specific subject, or even weight loss and health. If you say to yourself, I'm just unhealthy, or my genes say that I'm unfit, that I can't be fit, or I can't lose weight, you're not going to do it if you come into a scenario with that attitude.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the acceptance thing that you mentioned, that it's acceptance. Like, okay, I am not swimming as fast as I'd like to, instead of I'm slow. And it's the same thing. I'm a fat person. Well, that's how you're going to stay if you accept that that's where you are, if that's who you are, as opposed to where you are. Those are the 4 commonly asked questions. So I hope those helped, and I hope we kind of shed some light on some of those issues, and you don't feel so alone anymore. And that leads us into, we wanted to talk just briefly about, we have a course coming up, and the date, I should say we have a webinar coming up. And the webinar is called The Fit Triathlete, and we're going to do this on September 12th. So that's probably about 3 weeks from when this podcast is released. Fit Triathlete. So this came out of the need for, a lot of triathletes are fit for triathlon, but they're not fit in general. They don't have the fitness level that they're wanting. So a lot of people start out with the idea of doing a triathlon as, I'm going to do a triathlon, I'm going to get fit. And then they do one, they love doing triathlons, but they're not really getting fit. They're kind of staying the same, or they're not getting to their goals. So we want to help people with that, because Chris and I both have experience working with people in that realm, in the fitness realm. So we're going to do a webinar, and we're going to cover some major issues, some important issues with fitness as it pertains to doing triathlons. Okay, so we'll just go over them really quick. We don't have the whole thing completely 100% planned out, so we're just going to go over them real quick, and we'll have more on this later. So stay tuned to our newsletter if you're a subscriber, or our blog, or Facebook, or however you follow us. We're going to have announcements coming up really soon on what this is going to consist of, and the time, and how to sign up for it. It's going to be free, of course, and all that. Yeah, so basically we're going to do 4 pillars of the Fit Triathlete, and the first one is the mental and psychological realm. So we're going to start there because that is the most important thing when it comes to being fit and getting to your ideal fitness level or your ideal weight or however you're measuring it. So yeah, the first one is the mental or psychological part of fitness, and that is the most important thing. So we're going to start with that, and then we're going to get into the day-to-day nutrition. So what do you need to be eating? How do you need to be eating? How do you need to think about this? And then 3, it would be the racing nutrition, or how you fuel yourself on race day. Then the last thing would be the workouts. So are you, we talked about long, slow distance. Are you still doing that? Or how can you get better at workouts to get to your ideal fitness level? So that kind of covers what we're going to be talking about with the Fit Triathlete, and it's going to be probably about 30 minutes. Again, we'll have more information on this coming up, so stay tuned. And if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, you can do it at tryswimcoach.com or tryswimlessons.com. We have the sign-up form there, and you'll also get some cool information on swimming.
And keep on sending us your questions. We love to respond in person. We love hearing feedback from you all. Regardless of the questions, even if it's these 4 questions, we still love hearing from you. And so send us your questions, send us your emails, send us your feedback. If you got a race coming up and you're a little worried about it, we're happy to talk you through it. So you've got our emails. They can be found online. You can also connect with us on Facebook.
Yeah, and we're also on Instagram, finally. So we have an Instagram. It's just at TrySwimCoach. So look us up on Instagram if you're on. We're going to have a lot of fun with that. We're going to do a contest here at some point. I don't know when, but hopefully soon. So if you are an Instagram person, look us up because we want to connect with you. It's been a lot of fun because I actually didn't really ever do Instagram before about a month ago, other than posting a photo every 3 months. But now I'm actually in there and interacting, so it's kind of fun. So yeah, Instagram, and yeah, I think that's about it. I hope you're having a great summer. If it's summer, I know we have some Australian listeners, so it may not be, but I hope you're having a great time, whatever you're doing. And what else? Anything else, Chris?
No, I think that's it. Great.
Cool. All right. Thanks again for listening, and have a good one, and we'll talk to you soon.
Later.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to another episode covering swimming and triathlon mastery. To get your free online swim clinic, just go to tryswimlessons.com. Give us your name and email, and we'll have session number 1 off to you right away. Begin your process of befriending the swim and laughing at the water now.